Well, you can't win them all. And just like last year in 2024, the Houston Texans, a good defense, by the way, defeat the Bills. Bills postgame starts right now. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in our wonderful world of ours. Want to issue a happy Victory Friday to our Houston Texan fans. The Houston Texans defeated the Buffalo Bills 23-19, our final score. Before we get down to breaking down the game, I want to let you know that this is coming your way on Sports for Beginners after a hockey program on our show. It is also coming your way following a hockey show on the ice and behind the benches. But without further delay, my name is Scott McGregor. I am the host of Bill's Postgame. We look forward to keeping you in the loop as things go on. And speaking of keeping people in the loop, before we jump into the game, here are your head coaches and your inactive players for Week 12 in Houston, Thursday Night Football. It is important to note, though, that Josh Allen in his career on Thursdays is 8-0. He is now 8-1 and also 0 for 4 against Houston. Josh has not won a game against Houston, but add to his career record on Thursdays, 8-1 with a loss last night against the Texans. On Thursday, November 20th, 2025, we're getting you ready to break it all down. As we do so, let's go to our inactives. Not going to share the screen here because I have them on my notes as we speak. One of the key inactives we mentioned on the pregame show, we didn't mention who else would be inactive, but one of the key inactives we mentioned for the Houston Texans is their quarterback, C.J. Stroud. They were also without safety Jalen Petrie. I'll go with Jalen P. Wide receiver Braxton Berrios. Offensive tackle Jared Kingston. Offensive lineman Lakin Tomlinson. Lakin Tomlinson. Hopefully I pronounced the name right. If I didn't, I apologize. Texans also without linebacker Damon Clark and linebacker Jamal Hill. Buffalo once again without wide receivers Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel. Dalton Kincaid, the tight end, is also out. Cornerback Jamarcus Ingram out as well for this game. Offensive tackle Chase Lundett out as well. And defensive tackle P. Matthias out for Buffalo. This game was an 8:15 p.m. start and it kicked off Week 12 in the NFL season, which continues this Sunday and Monday. It'll wrap up. We'll get to the schedule momentarily, but in case you missed my earlier warning there, if you're tuning in on the Ice and Behind the Benches, you're tuning in after one of the latest editions of the Maple Leaf Show, featuring either a previous matchup between the Maple Leafs and the Kings, or their most recent matchup against the Blue Jackets. Meanwhile, on Sports for Beginners, if you're tuning into this show, you're tuning in after our PWHL kickoff episode for season 4 of Sports for Beginners, which is episode 28 of season 4 that you're tuning into after, or should say before, this episode of Bill's Postgame. But enough about that. Our time of game was 8:15 p.m. Eastern, 7:15 p.m. Central, 15 minutes after 1 in the morning in the UK, and 2 in the morning in France. Same time as Sweden, 2 in the morning, 15 minutes after 2 in the morning. Quarterbacks, as mentioned, were Josh Allen for the Bills, and Davis Mills would get the nod for the Texans. Here we go. Taking a look at the final score here on our shared screen, and I'll give you a look at the line score for the Buffalo Bills. From quarter one to quarter two, they scored a 6 in the first quarter. Houston countered with a 3. Houston took the lead 17 to 10 in the second quarter of play. At half, Houston would be leading 20 to 13, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, 20 to 16. That checks out better. Houston has the only points in the third quarter. And in the fourth quarter, Buffalo with the only points. To make up our final score, Texans 23, Bills 19. The game took place at NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. And a look at right now, before we get into the game, in terms of scoring drives, a look right now at where the standings are as we speak. The New England Patriots are now 2 games up on the Buffalo Bills in the AFC. Having yet to play, Buffalo can gain a game on New England if New England loses this week. And the New England Patriots are in action this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. And it looks like Joe Burrow could be back for the Cincinnati Bengals, but we don't know yet. Anyways, the records as we stand after Thursday Night Football. In the AFC East, the New England Patriots are 9-2. The Buffalo Bills 7-4. Miami not playing this week. They are 4-7. The other AFC East team to play this week is the New York Jets. They play the 5-5 Baltimore Ravens this Sunday. So 2 games of 1 o'clock action that Buffalo fans might want to be tuning into. New England versus Cincinnati and Baltimore versus the Jets. Over on the AFC South side, the Indianapolis Colts, who play the 5-5 Kansas City Chiefs this week, leading the charge in the AFC South at 8-2. The 6-4 Jaguars, who take on the 3-7 Cardinals, are in second place in the AFC South. And the Houston Texans are 6-5. If Jacksonville were to lose, Houston would take over their spot, the Jaguar spot, in the AFC South. At the bottom of the barrel in the AFC South is the Tennessee Titans, 1-9. Look for win number 2 of the season against the 7-3 Seahawks this week on Sunday. Jaguars also looking for a win, which would put them a game behind the Indianapolis Colts and a game above the Houston Texans. All right, here we go. How did it all plan out? Let's go to our scoring drives. Buffalo is the first team to score on this in this game. They do score, and it's James Cook who gets it going. 45-yard touchdown run for James Cook, but Matt Prater missed the extra point. So Buffalo is up 6-0. Later in the quarter, Houston's kicker, Kilami Fairbairn, back in the lineup, hits a 24-yard field goal after a quarter of play. It's 6-3 Buffalo. Second quarter of play as we dive right into our first half highlights now. Rather scoring. Matt Prater makes up for his field goal miss, extra point miss, I should say, which gives Buffalo a 9-3 lead. Buffalo up by 6 as they take an early field goal to get the lead at 9-3. The Houston Texans followed that up with a touchdown of their own. Of course, it was James Cook with the only touchdown of the game for Buffalo. Well, actually, the only touchdown on the ground so far for Buffalo. Buffalo was able to get into the end zone and score another touchdown, but it happened in special teams. We'll get there in a second. To put Houston up and take the lead in the second quarter, Davis Mills finds Christian Kirk for a 2-yard score. Kilami Fairbairn, I should say, picking up the extra point. Houston's on top for the first time tonight. 10-9. 10-9 Houston. They have to suffer for a field goal, which would be on their next drive after a turnover by Buffalo. On their next drive, it would be a 43-yard field goal from Kilani Fairbairn. 43-yard field goal from Fairbairn. Apologies if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. Good. 13-9 Texans. Texans on top 13. Texans would go to Higgins for a touchdown, but just after the field goal, Buffalo on the kickoff, Kilami Fairbairn 62-yard kick from the Houston 35 to the Buffalo 3, received by Ray Davis, and he is gone. 97-yard return for a touchdown. Matt Prater with the extra point, and guess what? Buffalo is back in front. 16-13 Buffalo. It was 9-13, and Ray Davis made it 16-13 Buffalo. What a return by Ray Davis on his birthday. Happy belated birthday to Ray Davis. His birthday was on game day, so happy belated birthday to Ray Davis. As I mentioned before, the Texans counter back with a touchdown of their own. This one is to Jaden Higgins, I should say. Gotta make sure I get the name right there for Houston. Higgins with the touchdown, 8-yard touchdown. Yes, Jaden Higgins was the name. Houston did, however, suffer an injury on the play. But this was an injury update when Higgins scored the touchdown. Davis Mills to Higgins for an 8-yard touchdown. Nico Collins, who was injured, had returned to the game. Cam Lewis caught for defensive pass interference. The Texans declined the penalty and let the play stand. Kilami Fairbairn with the extra point. Up and good. It is 20-16 Texans, and that is where we will jump in to our first commercial break of the program. This is Bills postgame. Bills and the Texans. Once again, the Buffalo Bills fall in their Texans matchup. The last time they played, in case you missed it on Before They Kick Off, Houston beat the Bills 23-20. Not quite 23-20 last night in a final score for this game this year, but we're going to find out how it all happened momentarily. Second half highlights, game totals, the play of the game, and our player of the game segment, the game balls, coming up momentarily. But right after our break and after the second half highlights of scoring and, of course, our game stats, which will be provided via the CBS app, sports app. Download the app for yourself and follow your favorite hockey club, your favorite sports team rather, your favorite football team all year long. Download the app for yourself to follow your team all year long and your sport. We're going to take a break. When we come back, third and fourth quarter scoring, game totals provided by the CBS Sports app, also provided by the CBS Sports app. We'll take a look at the schedule still to come, and I will even share my screen with NFL, the schedule format there for us to see the upcoming games for week 12 from Sunday to Monday, following game stats and second half highlights of Bills Texans. This is Bills postgame, and it continues on the ice and behind the benches and sports for beginners in moments. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for beginners will be right back in a moment.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Bills postgame. Bills and the Texans. We mixed that up kind of on our pregame show before they kick off. But we're gonna keep that to a pregame show just for football fans in general, mainly centered around primetime games like today's game of conversation on the postgame show. In case you missed it, the Buffalo Bills go to 7-4. The Houston Texans are 6-5. Houston coming into this game 5-5. The Buffalo Bills coming in at 7-3. Houston once again dominates the Bills, but it's a low-scoring game. And before we get to the third quarter, want to quickly remind you about how these teams got where they were. Recently coming out of the bye, the Seattle Seahawks beat the Houston Texans 20-19. The Texans bounced back with a 26 to 49ers in week number 8. Week 7, they lost 27-19 to the Seahawks. In week 9, they also lost, but they lost to the Denver Broncos 18-15. And since then, they are now on a 3-game winning streak with a 23-19 victory against Buffalo last night. Last week, they beat the Tennessee Titans 16-13. And they also beat the Jacksonville Jaguars the week before that, 30-29. Since week 1, they've lost 3 games and won 2 before they headed into their bye, winning both of their Titan games 26-0, and as I mentioned before, 16-13. That was in week 11. In week number 4, they shut out the Texans 26-0. They have also beat Lamar Jackson and company 44-10, lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in week number 2, 20-19. In week number 3, they lost to the Jaguars in their first showdown with the Jags, 17-10, so they got revenge when the Jaguars came to Houston. They also lost their opener in week 1, 14-9 to the Los Angeles Rams. So the Texans are on a 3-game winning streak, not losing. 3-game winning streak, beating the Jaguars the week before last week when they beat the Titans, and they've just recently beat the Bills this week, heading into next week, which we'll get into later on. And for the Buffalo Bills coming into this week, which they fell to the Houston Texans, they have defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 44-32. That was last week. They lost an embarrassing game to the Miami Dolphins 30-13 last week. I should say the week before last week. Last week was the Buccaneer game. The week before that, they beat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs 28-21 and went bananas against the Carolina Panthers, beating the Panthers 40-9. That's coming out of their bye. And also, since I mentioned back in the beginning of the Texans schedule, the Buffalo Bills, as we know on Bills postgame, sweat it for week 1's win. They sweat it for the week 1 win against the Ravens, 41-40, the final score there. In week 2, they took down the New York Jets 30-10. That was at MetLife Stadium, so the Jets are coming to Buffalo down the stretch. Miami got the win the week before last week against the Buccaneers, but Buffalo got the win in week number 3, 31-29. 31-21, excuse me, was the final. Bills also beat the Saints 31-19 the following week in week number 4, before back-to-back losses heading into the bye, 20-23 against the Patriots at home, and 24-14 at the Falcons. They lost, at which time the Bills' record heading into their bye would be 4-2. I would have preferred 5-1, but the Bills couldn't get the job done against the Falcons, and they lost a critical game against the Patriots. Speaking of the Patriots, just like the Jets, they are coming down the stretch, and we will see the Patriots in 2 weeks' time, not next week, but 2 weeks' time, in week number 15, when the Patriots battle the Buffalo Bills in Foxborough. The Jets will battle the Bills in week number 18. Time to be determined, or to be announced rather. But enough about that. It's time to get back to business in this week's matchup. When we last left in our highlights from the first and second half, the Texans were up 20-16, which would be the score at halftime. On an 8-play drive in the third quarter, the Texans have to settle for a field goal, which will put them up by 7, 23-16. If Kehlani Fairbairn can hit a 26-yard field goal, and he does. So at the half, the Bills trailed to 16, which was, at that point, a 4-point game. Now it's a 7-point game, 23-16. That is where it would end up after 3 quarters of play. Texans with the field goal in the third quarter. Buffalo picks up a field goal in the fourth quarter by Matt Prater after a couple of sacks here in this drive. 2 to the exact, a 5-yard loss for Josh on fourth down. Actually, it was a fourth shotgun, rather. Josh Allen also hit Kale Shakir for a 44-yard pass. But anyways, on the 7th play of the drive, it was Matt Prater who was called on, and he hit a 38-yard field goal to cut the deficit from 7-4, and that is how the Texans would beat the Bills 2019, which would be our final score. Play of the game coming up in moments, as well as our game balls of the game also coming up in moments. But I want to take this opportunity now to get into via the CBS Sports app before we get to our totals, I should say. What's coming up on the Week 12 slate? As we mentioned on Before They Kick Off, no early kickoffs this week, and for the rest of the season, all those international games have been played as we speak. So now it's your traditional 1 p.m. slate, followed by 4:25, 4:05, 8:20, and 8:15. Speaking of 8:20 and 8:15 p.m. games, Eastern Time, let's start with the primetime slot. Sunday Night Football this week is in South Carolina as we go to SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California, where the 8-2 Los Angeles Rams will face off against the 6-4 Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. Our Monday Night Football game for week number 12 and our wraparound of primetime action. Off we go to San Francisco and Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, and Levi Stadium, where the 7-4 San Francisco 49ers take on the 6-5 Carolina Panthers. Prime time on Monday Night Football is the 6-5 Carolina Panthers against the 7-4 San Francisco 49ers. Sunday Night Football is the 6-4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the 8-2 Los Angeles Rams. What about Sunday afternoon football? This Sunday, well, we're going to kick things off with the games at 1 p.m. They are the 6-4 Pittsburgh Steelers against the 7-3 Chicago Bears. Lamar Jackson and company take on the 2-8 New York Jets. The Ravens are 5-5. They will take on the 2-8 Jets. At the same time of Steelers and Bears at 1 p.m. Eastern. Also at 1 p.m. Eastern, the 9-2 New England Patriots taking on the 3-7 Cincinnati Bengals. Keeping things going here at 1 p.m. 2-9. The 2-9 G-Man Giants at 2-9 take on the 6-4 Detroit Lions. Over in Lambeau, it's the 6-3-1 Packers hosting the 4-6 Minnesota Vikings. The 4-6 Minnesota Vikings. They are in Lambeau against the Packers. The 7-3 Seattle Seahawks head to Tennessee to take on the Titans, who are 1-9. And last but certainly not least, in our 1 p.m. slate, it's the 5-5 Kansas City Chiefs. The 5-5 Kansas City Chiefs against the 8-2 Indianapolis Colts. On the bye this week are the Miami Dolphins, Washington Commanders, Denver Broncos, and Los Angeles Chargers. Their records heading into action next week, as they are on the bye this week: 9-2 for the Broncos, 7-4 for the Chargers, 4-7 for the Dolphins, 3-8 for the Commanders. The 3-8 Commanders host next week. They will host the 9-2 Denver Broncos. Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins, currently at 4-7, will take on the New Orleans Saints, who are at 2-8. We'll get to their matchup momentarily. And the Los Angeles Chargers will take on, at this time, the 2-8 Las Vegas Raiders next week. Las Vegas still having yet to play this week, but we'll touch on that in the 4 p.m. slate a little later. Right now, let's get to, from week 12, let's get to our stats for the game, and we will get to our play of the game as well. Here we go. We talked about the line score earlier. Here is your stats courtesy of the CBS Sports app. The Buffalo Bills' time of possession was 32 minutes and 22 seconds. Houston Texans on the ball for 27 minutes and 38 seconds in time of possession. First downs, 14. Bills, no automatic first downs for Buffalo on penalties. They had 9 passing first downs and 5 rushing first downs. 15 total first downs for the Texans, 7 passing, 6 rushing, and 2 automatic first downs. The Texans were 2 of 12 on third down efficiency. Buffalo, 5 of 16 on third down efficiency. Buffalo went 3 for 5 on fourth down. Houston, only 1 opportunity on fourth down, and they connected. They're 1 for 1. Total yards for the Houston Texans, based off of their 56 plays called and averaging 4.7 yards per play. They finished the game with a total of 261 yards. Buffalo finishing with 326 yards on 66 plays. They average 4.9 yards per play. Davis Mills threw for 153 yards. Josh Allen throwing for 253 yards, hitting 24 of his 34 attempts in the passing game. Davis Mills, 16 of 30 completions, averaging 5.1 yards per pass. Josh averaging 4 point pass. Bills defense not able to get to Davis Mills. Davis had good protection. Meanwhile, his defense was able to bag Josh Allen a career high 8 sacks, which had Josh lose at least 70 yards each time he was sacked. Buffalo ran the ball 24 times, picked up 143 yards rushing, averaging 6 yards per rush. 108 yards for the Texans on 26 rushes, averaging 4 points per rush. In the red zone, Buffalo 0 for 2. They did not get to goal to go efficiency. The Texans, meanwhile, did 3 times and connected twice on those 3 tries. They go 2 for 3 on goal to go efficiency. In the red zone, the Texans were 2 of 4. Buffalo 0 for 2, 2 for 4 for the Texans in the red zone. Penalties, 5 penalties to the Texans for 40 yards, 6 penalties to Buffalo for 54 yards. Houston winning the turnover battle, not turning the ball over once. Josh turned the ball over Allen. How about this? Josh just turns the ball over. Never mind Josh turned the ball over Allen. Just Josh turns the ball over. Or Josh Allen turns the ball over. That's it. The Bills lost 1 fumble. and Josh threw 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown on the ground, no touchdowns in the air for Josh Allen, 1 defensive special team touchdown, that was courtesy of Ray Davis, 1 touchdown on the ground, that was courtesy of James Cook, 2 total touchdowns to a side. However, both are in the air for the Texans. In the return yard, Buffalo had 15 yards on 4 punt returns. Houston, no punts, no return yards. There were punts in the game, obviously, for Houston. There were punts in the game for Houston, but no return yards when Buffalo kicked the ball back to Houston. They had 5 kickoffs and 116 yards returning the ball against Buffalo. Buffalo, 4 kickoffs, 167 yards in return, and 2 interceptions, both thrown by Josh. 29 yards on the return. I should say 29 yards of interceptions on the 2 interceptions. So 2 interceptions by the Texans, 29 yards on the return for interception yards. No safeties, no special team defense touchdowns for the Texans, no touchdowns on the ground, no safeties for either team. And on the Houston side of things, as well as on the Bills side of things, no interception yards and no interceptions thrown by Davis Mills. No safeties, as I mentioned. There were punts in the game, but no return yards for the Texans in this one. Those are our stats of the game. Texans winning it 23-19. Hey, that's the term in Monsters Incorporated when if you remember, those who have seen the movie, Disney Pixar's Monsters Incorporated, the score of this game is the security call when there is an emergency because of a human sock on a monster, or a monster has been in contact with a child, which calls for the C. But enough about Monsters Incorporated and Disney Pixar. The point is, the Bills lose 19, and now they got to get ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, I guess job one will be to watch the Steeler game to see what you can pick up. Time now for our play of the game, brought to you by its respective sponsors for the Houston Texans and, of course, the Buffalo Bills. We are not sponsored by any of the We are not sponsored by any of those sponsors for the Houston Texans or the Buffalo Bills. And if we had someone on with us for a recap like this one, I would give them the floor, but we don't have someone on for us as a guest. So play of the game is going to come courtesy of the host, which is me. And honestly, even though the Buffalo Bills lost this game, Bills Mafia, even though they lost this game, I have to say, good enough for my play of the game, besides losing the game, obviously, which is not great to see. We hoped Buffalo would win this game. They obviously did not, but we can't stress on that. And when we talk standings in a moment, because I want to get to the standings before we close out the show. When we talk standings in a moment, I'm also going to bring up the playoff picture, but what I will talk about just before I reveal my play of the game, what I will talk about here is the fact that, there's an old saying, not necessarily in sports, but there is an old saying, good things come to those who wait. So was this a game Buffalo could win? Absolutely. Did they win it? No, they did not. Was it Sean McDermott's fault? Was it Brandon Beane's fault? No. Okay, maybe it might be a bit of Sean McDermott's fault, but I don't think it's Brandon Beane's fault at all. And honestly, I don't think the Bills were playing complementary football. I don't believe they were playing complementary football. I don't believe it. Now, there were stretches of the game where I thought Buffalo was playing complementary football, but you can't really win games if you're kicking field goals and relying on Matt Prater. Now, Matt Prater did miss his extra point after the James Cook touchdown. If he doesn't miss his extra point, I'm not saying the loss is on Matt Prater, because he made the field goals that he did when we couldn't get anything going offensively after the James Cook touchdown. I gotta tell you, though, if there's anybody to blame, it's the entire team in general. But what's good enough for my play of the game is the Ray Davis 97-yard touchdown run right from the kickoff. Just 2 plays after and 13 seconds after, Kalami Fairbairn hit Pater with a 43-yard field goal to give Houston a 13-9 advantage. Of course, at this time, even though it took 2 plays, which was a kickoff, returned 97 yards to the house from Ray Davis, and Matt Prater was the extra point up and good. That put Buffalo ahead. But after that, Houston took over, and then Buffalo couldn't find a way to turn the game in their favor. Now, I'm not going to mention this name, but this is my favorite Dolphins fan that I am looking at now. You say the Bills, when is Buffalo going to admit their Super Bowl window is open or is closed? Well, how about this? Let the guys play, and if Buffalo's Super Bowl window is indeed closed, remember this: good things come to those who wait. And the Buffalo Bills and all of Bills Mafia have been waiting to get the Vince Lombardi trophy in Buffalo. Will it ever happen? Absolutely it will. I believe it will, because as I said before, good things come to those who wait. Now, will the Bills win the division? Well, they got to pick up victories against their next opponents, and especially against division opponents like the Jets and Patriots, who they beat and also lost to. They lost to the Patriots, but they've beaten the Jets before. So on top of every other team they have over the course of the next few weeks, I kindly tell Bills Mafia, do not lose hope on Bills. Do not lose hope on this Bills team. Do not lose hope. You're not going to win every game, and especially you're not going to win when you don't contribute as money as you do. When you don't contribute as many points as you have in the past in a couple of weeks that you have done against the Panthers, the Buccaneers, and going all the way back to week 1 against the Ravens, when you don't eclipse that timeline of points, it's because you haven't been able to contribute as many points. As Sean McDermott says, you haven't been playing complementary football. But you know what? I'm not worried. A loss is a loss. A win is a win. So flush this loss down the toilet, Bills Mafia, and let's get ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which we're going to talk about over the next few segments. Play of the game belongs to Ray Davis for his 97-yard touchdown return in the middle of the second quarter and near the end of the first half of this game. But the Bills fall 2019 to the Houston Texans, and we'll be back with the 4 p.m. slate for week number 12. Game balls of the game, known as our player of the game. And then we'll set the scene for what's next for Buffalo and what's next for the Texans, as well as what's next for this podcast. If you're joining us after PWHL kickoff on Sports for Beginners, odds are you are. We hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're joining us before that episode, we hope you enjoy the show. And I want to remind you that when we get to that point in the show after this break, we will be reminding you about what is to come on Sports for Beginners, the podcast. And I'm even going to get Thomas, as our outro music ends, to provide us with what's to come on the ice and behind the benches. Don't go anywhere. Bills postgame continues with the game ball of the game, the 4 p.m. slate for Sunday, and what's next for Buffalo, what's next for the Texans, as well as what's next around the podcast, all when Bills postgame continues after this from our friends over at Sienna T Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo. Two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to CNT Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time. Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Just left shoulder, landed on it, and went a little numb on me. I'll have to watch it on film. I feel like they were doing a few different stunts. They had a good plan, and we gotta play better. Not necessarily. They just they wanted it today, And yeah, I mean, we had a chance to win it there at the end, and got to find a way. Final play, looking like a man, just dropping back and just trying to get it to one of our open guys. Yeah.
Was there some miscommunication, or were you just not happy with the play?
I mean, just frustration on my part. In a situation like that, probably should have just banged a timeout. Just we got the plan late, didn't give ourselves a chance there. Yeah, it's not fun. I ran into a couple myself. I got to be better with throwing the ball away and living to see another down, and letting us play some situational football and pinning them deep. And too many times I was going backwards, and I got to be better on that. Sure, yeah. Listen, I mean, it's hindsight's 20/20. Ultimately, we got to execute, and we didn't do a good enough job of that tonight. Whatever situation, whatever circumstance, we gotta put our head down and find a way there. And on the field, we didn't. That's what it comes down to.
How was it to deal with that?
Yeah, again, had a chance to win it there at the end, so that we did a good job of staying in it. Defense bailed us out at times, and again, we drive in the ball on that last drive, and we gotta find a way to get in. We didn't. First interception, honestly, he made a really good play. Zero was kind of pushing to the flat, and I saw Elijah for a split second was open. I mean, I can try to put the ball a little bit higher. That was just one. I feel like he made a really good play.
Anything exotic, but
it's a good unit. It's a really, statistically, I think they're at the tops in basically everything that you can be the tops in, and they showed that tonight. It's a really good football team.
That's Josh Allen speaking to the media after the game, and I want to talk about, as we bring you back in here, I want to talk about some of the things Josh said. In particular, his point to the frustration comment. And honestly, first of all, they got to play better. You heard Josh say at the opening, as we came back from our commercial break, thank you to CNT Radio for bringing us back into our show with a quick little word. But you heard Josh say he's okay. Early in the game, and there was a question there early in the game, you came up and you were down on the field, and the person doing the media who was asking this also said, obviously I'm taking you to tell us what the quote, and he said, just left shoulder, landed on it, and went a little numb on me. And he said, we're good. We knew how good Houston's defense is. There was a question, what were they doing to, and then I don't know what else the question was there, but Josh said, I'll have to watch it on film. I feel like they were doing a few different stunts. They had a good plan, and we gotta play better. Josh said not necessarily they wanted it today, and I mean, we had a chance to win it there at the end, and gotta find a way. So yeah, you have to find a way, especially when you're in a game like that. Dion Dawkins also did speak to the media, as did head coach McDermott. And after the game, Sean McDermott was saying, we have to we've got a lot of work to do, but he also, I think this press conference here, we battle, we push forward, is more of the end of the game press conference there. But regardless, I just don't think Bills were playing complementary football at all. I don't think so. I just don't think they were. All right, let's give you a look at the playoff picture. And we did give you a look earlier at the standings before we got into the game. But let's give you a look at how the playoff picture stands out. Here we go. Here is the NFC and the AFC. Nobody has clinched a playoff spot yet. There are 7 playoff spots available. And it is very likely that Denver could probably wind up with the bye in the playoffs. Right now, all the way to number 7 in the hunt, we have from the AFC, we have the Denver Broncos at 9-2, sitting in seed number 1. Seed number 2 belongs to the New England Patriots at 9-2 as well. In number 3, we have the 8-2 Indianapolis Colts. Seed number 5 belongs to the Los Angeles Chargers. Number 4 belongs to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 6-4. Chargers 7-4. Bills also 7-4. They are in the 6th seed, and the 7th seed right now belongs to the Jaguars, who are 6-4 as we speak. In the bubble in the AFC, you have the Houston Texans at 6-5 in the 8th seed. In the 9th seed at 5-5 right now are the Kansas City Chiefs. Baltimore Ravens also at 5-5. They are in the 10th seed. The 4-7 Miami Dolphins are in the 11th seed. Bengals in the 12th seed at 3-7. Raiders at 2-8 in the 13th. Also at 2-8, the New York Jets in the 14th seed. Titans, the 2-9 New York Giants are in the 16th seed in the NFC. Seed number 15 belongs to the New Orleans Saints at 2-8. The Washington Commanders are in seed number 14 at 3-8. At 3-7 in seed number 13 are the Atlanta Falcons. In seed number 12, also at 3-7, the Arizona Cardinals. Seed number 11 belongs to the 4-6 Vikings. The 4-5-1 Cowboys. The 9th seed is the 6-5 Carolina Panthers. In the 8th seed for teams in the bubble in the NFC is the 6 and seeds 1-7 include in the NFC the 8-2 Eagles, 8-2 Rams. Seed number 3 belongs to the Chicago Bears at 7-3. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 6-4 have the 4th seed. 7-3 Seahawks have the 5th seed. 6th seed belongs to the 6-3-1 Packers. And the 7th seed is the 7-4 49ers. Nobody has been eliminated. Nobody has clinched a playoff spot yet, but that is your playoff picture. So the Bills are currently still in the playoff picture, but if they lose to the Steelers, they could be in massive trouble. And they are still games up on the Miami Dolphins, but that series is tied with Buffalo winning week 1 or I should say matchup number 1 between Miami and Buffalo, and Miami winning matchup number 2 back in week number 10. Buffalo winning matchup number 1 in week 3, Miami picked up the dub in week number 10. So Miami at 4-7 are 3 games below the Buffalo Bills. But with the Bills' loss, they might have gained a game on Buffalo. Time now for our game balls of the game, which are the player of the game segment. You can get in on the action through our Discord server. Unless you are having issues with the Discord servers, you can get in on the action in our WhatsApp group. We have a WhatsApp group as well. And I want to let everyone know as well that we could be getting more groups added to our network of community. You can also leave us your thoughts in the comments for Game Ball of the Game on YouTube and on Spotify or however your podcast platform works. we will greatly appreciate it. Another easy way to do it is by contacting us at Sports for Beginners Podcast 80. With that being said, we're going to give out just 2 game balls of the game, 1 to each side. And the first one is going to go to the visiting Buffalo Bills. And for me, that is going to go to Kale Shakir. 44 yards was his longest catch. He averaged 13.8 yards per catch. But I'm also going to give Allen a runner-up notice. The game ball of the game goes to Kale Shakir for the Buffalo Bills. For the Houston Texans, that's going to go to the quarterback Davis Mills, with an honorable mention going to Nick Chubb, who had 16 rushes for 16 yards. His longest run was 7 yards, averaging 2.7 yards per carry. Davis Mills and Kale Shakir with the game balls of the game for the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans. Texans beat the Bills. So now that's it for Buffalo for the week. When do we play again? Well, Buffalo will play again next Sunday against the current 6-4 Pittsburgh Steelers. Will they be 7-4? Will they be 6-5? When we see Buffalo take on the Steelers, we don't know. What we do know, going into Steelers week, Buffalo is 7-4. Game time in Eastern on November 30th, 2025. That will be a American Thanksgiving edition of Bills Post Game, which will come your way on the platforms right after the WHL recap between the Montreal Victoire and the Boston Fleet. So Bills Post Game comes your way after our coverage of Victoire versus Fleet in PWHL action. The rest of the schedule, besides the TBA game against the Jets, includes after the Steelers 1 p.m. showdowns against the Bengals, Patriots, and Browns, and then one more 4:25 p.m. start. This one will be at home against the Eagles. At home against the Jets is a TBA. We don't know what time that will be, and that will follow the Eagles game. The Bills have 3 games left on the road, including next week against the Steelers. They got the Eagles and the Jets coming up. All right, what about Houston down the stretch? Well, they will face the Indianapolis Colts next Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. They get the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football in Kansas City in week 14, the week after next week. Game time at 8 p.m. Eastern. Then at 1 p.m. Eastern, they take on the Arizona Cardinals in week 15. Weeks 17 and 18 for them, which are against the Chargers and Colts, are TBA as we speak. But their game before the Chargers week and then Colts week again, it is the Las Vegas Raiders. Game time for that, 4:20, and that is at NRG Stadium in Houston, Texans, the site of Thursday night's matchup and this week's matchup on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, between the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans. Texans win it 2019. Wrapping us up here before we wrap up our show with 4 p.m. slate. Games on the slate for prime time. 1 p.m. games we did earlier on. Let's go to the 4 o'clock, and we'll remind you again of the last 2 games in prime time. So we lead off with, at 4:25 p.m., the showdown between the 6-4 Jaguars and the 3-7 Arizona Cardinals. Also at 4:25 p.m. Eastern, we got, I should say, at 4:05 p.m. Eastern, it's the 6-4 Jaguars against the 3-7 Cardinals at 4:05 p.m. Also at that time, the 2-8 Cleveland Browns face the 2-8 Las Vegas Raiders. Then at 4:25 p.m., it is the 8-2 Eagles against the 4-5-1 Dallas Cowboys. And the 4:25 p.m. slate wraps up with the 3-7 Falcons against the 2-8 Saints. And our showdowns on Monday Night Football And Sunday Night Football include the 8-2 Rams hosting the 6-4 Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football, and the 6-5 Panthers paying a visit to the San Francisco 49ers at 7-4 on Monday Night Football. The 1 p.m. slate, as we went over the 1 p.m. slate, we'll go right over it one more time in case you missed it. The 2-8 Jets take on the 5-5 Ravens at 1 p.m. Also at that time, the 6-4 Steelers battle the 7-3 Bears. The New England Patriots at 9-2 visit the 3-7 Cincinnati Bengals. The 2-9 New York Giants, face off against the 6-4 Detroit Lions. The 4-6 Vikings take on the 6-3-1 Packers. The 5-5 Chiefs battle the 8-2 Indianapolis Colts, and the 7-3 Seahawks take on the 1-9 Titans. And that'll do it for our episode here on Sports for Beginners, the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us here on Bills postgame. On the Ice and Behind the Benches, coming up after this one, likely it is either the previous matchup against the Los Angeles Kings or the previous matchup between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Meanwhile, over here, this show is now being followed by PWHL Hockey Talk, which will take over on Sunday, and no season content for the Penguins this week. That happens next week on Black Friday when the Penguins get ready to take on the Columbus Blue Jackets. That will be our next season episode. And the episode, if you tuned into this episode before you tuned into the actual season episode, which is season 4, episode 28, we're talking women's hockey, PWHL. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. We may be talking women's hockey with Erica Lindsay Ayala of Locked On Kraken and also founder of Black Rosie Media. Spoiler alert, it's not confirmed yet, but spoiler alert, Erica might be bringing herself back on. Here's what's not a spoiler. We may be talking to Erica right after the Golden Eyes and Torrent game, so keep your eyes peeled. The Bills fall 23-19 to the Houston Texans, and now they await the Pittsburgh Steelers. As I said before, good things come to those who wait. So if Buffalo has to continue to wait long and hard, to anybody who says, when are you going to admit, Buffalo, your Super Bowl window is closed? I say, how about this? Just watch and wait and see. The Buffalo Bills have missed the Super Bowl very many times. And each time they've gotten to the Super Bowl, they have choked. Whenever they do go back to Super Bowl, maybe it will be different. 4 times the Bills have gone to the Super Bowl, and each time they've choked. Could that be a different story if the Bills find a way into the playoffs and find a way to the big game in February? We'll soon find out. But 1 week, 1 game at a time. Thank you so much for joining us here on Bills Postgame. Hockey content coming up next on the Ice and Behind the Benches. And if you're tuning in to PWHL Kickoff, the episode that airs before this episode here on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, hope you enjoyed the episode. Hockey coverage coming the rest of your way for the week, including the return of PWHL Recap as we recap the Victoire and the Fleet from Sunday. Perhaps we'll have an updated record for you of the Steelers on that show. You never know. Until then, Bills Mafia, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being with us for the ride. Enjoy your Victory Friday, Texans fans, or whenever you catch this show on our podcast feed. And as always, Bills Mafia, go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. as we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.